Hey, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be working on the cameras. So we're going to be enabling the ability to switch cameras, look around, and then have a back-looking camera. So a camera that faces backwards. The method for this video comes from the YouTuber Math B. I will leave a link to his YouTube channel down in the description. So with that, let's get started. So what we're going to go is in the parent vehicles, we're going to content, vehicles, parent vehicle, open up the BP tutorial, and then we're just going to dock this to the top. Then we're going to go back to content, inputs, and then in here we're going to create two inputs. So right click, input, input action. Then we're going to go IA underscore look back. And then in here, we need to open this up. And then, okay, that one is fine. We don't need to do anything with that. Then we're going to right click again, input action, and that's going to be IA underscore switch camera, and then that one's also fine as is. And then we're going to right click one more time, input action, and then this is going to be the IA underscore look around, and then we're going to open up this one, and then where it says value type, I'll switch it from bool to axis 1D. We're going to save, close that, open up the IMC inputs. Going to add a new mapping. Then the first one we're going to add is the look around. Expand this, and then you can't really use the keypad for this one. So what we're going to do is click on where it says none. Then we're going to look for the mouse X. Then we're going to add another mapping, and then this one is going to be the look back. Expand it. Then I'm going to use L for this one. And then the last one, another mapping. This is going to be the switch cameras, and I'm going to use C. So we're going to save, close everything. Then in the BP tutorial, find an empty spot. I'm going to do it here next to the input controls. So the first thing I'm going to do is the look around. I'm going to take the control arm, hold control, drag it in, right click, and then we're going to look for the IA look around input action. And then from the control arm, we're going to drag off, and then we're going to look for add local rotation. And then by the delta rotation on the pen, we're going to right click and then split strut pin. And then from the action value, we're going to connect this to the delta rotation Z. And then from the trigger, we're going to connect that to the add local rotation. And then that is it for the look around. Compile and save. And then we're also going to enable some camera lag. So again, on the control arm, select it in the components. Then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the lag section. And then we're going to enable the camera lag as well as camera lag rotation. So we're going to put the camera lag speed at 10. Then we're going to change the camera rotation lag speed to 4. And then the camera lag max distance, we're going to leave this at 0. You can come and play around with this if you want. Then we're going to compile, save, and then we're just going to test this out. So I'm going to head over to the workshop, play the level. We're going to exit workshop. I'll say yes. And then we're just going to move the mouse. So as you can see, we can now rotate the camera around the vehicle. And then for the camera lag, as you can see, when you pull away, there's a little bit of lag on the camera as the car speeds off. So it does work. Head back to the vehicle. And then to get the camera to rotate back behind the car, in the previous tutorial, what we did was we added it to the Aventic, but that kind of made it so that the look around wasn't so smooth because you're constantly fighting against the Aventic because I was always trying to pull it back to the rear and you were trying to look around the car. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to add it to the throttle. So to do that, we're just going to expand this a bit, move this out the way. Then we're going to take the control arm, not the control arm, the spring arm, hold control, drag it in, and then just make some space here. From the spring arm, drag off, and then we're going to get relative rotation. Then on the pen, right click, split strut pin. And then yet again from the spring arm, we're gonna drag off and then we're gonna set relative rotation. On the new rotation on the pen, right click, split strut pin, and then we're going to connect this after the set throttle. So connect that to the set relative rotation. So then from the relative rotation Z, we're going to drag off and look for an F interp 2. And then from the return value, we're going to drag this and connect this to the new Z rotation. For the delta time, we're going to drag off and then get world delta seconds. And then the interp speed, I'm going to set this to 10, but you can play around with it and get a value that you are comfortable with. So just move this out the way a bit. I'm going to just tidy things up a bit. So now if we go and test it out, so we look around the car, and then when we hit the throttle, it rotates back to the rear. If we let go of the throttle, we are able to look around the car again. If we hit the throttle again, it gets back behind the car. That code works. Now we're going to add the other code back to the parent vehicle. Then I'm gonna do it here underneath the look around. Gonna right click, then we'll look for the IA switch cameras. So before we move on, we just need to add all the cameras that we are going to use for the code. So we're gonna head to the viewport. So we only currently have one camera. So under the components, we're gonna click add. We're gonna add a camera, a normal camera, and then this is going to be, let's go with hood camera. And then we're going to add another camera. Actually, let's move this one into its position in the meantime. Just going to put this here, just position it nicely. Also, thing to note is after you've added all the cameras to the parent vehicle, you are going to have to go and reposition them in all the child cars, because although the cameras will be there, they will be in the same position as the parent, and that will not be universal for all the cars, because cars have different heights and different lengths. So the camera position will not work for all of them. So you're just gonna have to go into every car and then just go and position them. We put actually not position them, reposition them. So we're gonna add another camera. So just add another camera again. And then this camera, I'm gonna call this the roof camera. And then we're gonna position this one here on the roof. And then we're gonna add the final camera. And then this is going to be the look back camera. And then this one, we're just gonna rotate it on the Z 180. And then we're just gonna place this, say, over here at the very back of the car. That's fine. And then I'm just gonna go and reposition them for all the cars that are in the tutorial series. So I'll come back once I'm done with that. Now I'm done repositioning them on all the vehicles. We're gonna head back to the code. We're gonna head back to the event graph. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna drag in all the cameras. Important thing to note is that for the camera code, for the switch cameras and then the look back camera, you need to keep your cameras in the exact same order. So whatever camera comes first, second, and third, they need to remain in that exact same order. Otherwise, there's going to be conflict when the code is being run. Whenever you press the buttons, if the things aren't in the exact order, then there's going to be problems and you're going to encounter some errors. So please note that if your camera is first, it needs to remain first. If it's second, it needs to remain second. And if it's third, it needs to remain third. Whatever position you have assigned it to on the switch cameras is the exact same order it needs to be in for the rest of the code as well. So I'm going to start with the camera, which I haven't renamed. Let me just rename this F2. I'm going to call this the rear camera. So I'm going to hold control, drag in this camera. Then I'm going to switch to the hood camera. And then currently I named this one wrong. This is the roof, not root. Then we're going to drag in the roof. Then we're going to finally drag in the look back camera. And then we're also going to create a new variable. So by the variables, add a new variable. We're going to call this the camera index. This is going to be of type integer. Compile. And then from the rear camera, we're just going to drag off and then look for deactivate. And then we're going to expand the enhanced input action from the started, connect that to the deactivate, collapse that again, then just connect all the cameras to that as well. And then one thing I did forget to do on all the cameras, just select the camera, and then in the details, we're gonna look for the auto activate. So we need this to be off for all the cameras except the rear camera. Otherwise, here again, there is going to be conflict when the car is first spawned into the level, because then you don't know which camera needs to be activated when the car is first brought into the level. If every camera is supposed to auto activate, then everyone is going to activate at once, and then it's going to be a problem. So you just need one to activate. So we're going to deselect everything but the rear camera. So the roof, deactivate, the hood, deactivate, and then the rear camera, we're going to leave this one on. That's fine. And then from here, we're going to hold control, drag in the camera index variable, drag off from there. Then we're going to go to switch on int, connect the execution pin. We're only going to add 3 pins, even though there are 4 cameras. And then we are going to hold alt, drag in the camera index, select it, control D, then control D once more. And then what we're going to do is we are going to start off with 1, 2, and 0. What we want to happen here is that the cameras have been assigned as 0, 1, and 2, which would be rear, hood, and roof. But when we switch the cameras, we want it to switch over to the next one in the line. So if we're going from 0, we want it to go to 2. If we're going not to 2, from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, and then from 2 back to 0. So that's why we need to keep everything in the exact same order, because it has been registered with a number, and if that number is not consistent, there's going to be problems. So we're just going to connect all of this. We're going to drag in the camera index, hold control, drag it in, drag off, and then look for select. So under the utilities strut, the select. Then we're going to add a pin, and then the cameras as they are, we're just going to select the 3, control D, and then here we have it. We're going to put them as 0, 1, and 2. Then from the turn, we're going to drag off and then look for activate, and then we're going to connect it to all the set. So now with this piece of code, we have assigned each camera to a number, which is 0, 1, and 2, which would be the rear, hood, and roof. So then when the index is set and the corresponding number is then passed through the select code via the camera index, it will then activate the camera that is associated with that number. So then that is the code for the switch cameras. Now, if you're wondering why the look back camera is connected to deactivate despite the fact that we're not actually using it, we just want to make sure that when we're running through the camera switches, the look back camera doesn't accidentally also get activated. We don't want that to happen in the middle of while you're switching the cameras. Then all of a sudden, you facing the rear of the car, and then again you switch to a different view when you didn't actually want to cycle through that one. So this is just an extra step to ensure that the look back camera doesn't get activated by mistake. So then with that, we are now going to do the look back. So the look back is very similar to the switch cameras, but there is a little bit of a difference. So right here below the switch cameras, we're gonna right click, and then we're gonna look for the IA look back. So we're gonna expand the enhanced action input, and then we're gonna copy this code over here by the deactivate. Just gonna control D. Then by the started, we're gonna connect that to the deactivate. And then we're going to take the look back camera, Control D this one, and then drag off from there. Then we're going to hit activate. So when we press the L key that has been assigned to the look back function, we want to disable all the other cameras except for the look back camera. And then from the completed, we are going to copy this code yet again, Control D, connect that to the deactivate, and then we're going to take the code over here and then Control D this, then connect that to the deactivate, and then collapse the input, just tidy this up a bit. So yet again with the look back camera, we want it to activate regardless of whichever camera the player is currently in. So whether you're in the rear camera, hood camera, or the roof camera, we want you to have the ability to look back. And then once you let go of the look back key, which in this case is L, we want it to then switch back to the camera that you previously had before you look back. So if you're in the rear camera, we want it to switch back to the rear camera. If you're on the hood camera, we want to switch back to the hood camera. If you're in the roof camera, we want to switch back to the roof camera. And that's what this code here enables, because each camera has been assigned a key in the camera index. So once it reactivates, it will look at whatever the last index number was that the player camera was on, and then it will activate that one instead of just maybe randomly activating whatever camera it feels like, which would be the rear camera, because that is the only one that has the auto activate on. But in this case, we are telling it that we need to activate the camera that the player was last on before they hit the look back. So we're going to compile, save, and then we are going to test out the code. Go ahead back to the level, going to save everything. Then we'll play the level. So we're going to press L. So we're going to look back. If we let go, it goes back to the rear camera. If we press C, we're now in the hood. I'm going to press L again, back in the look back. Then we're back to the hood. C again, we're in the roof. Press L, look back, and then we're back in the roof. So as you can see, as we cycle through the cameras, it does cycle through them. And then regardless of whichever camera we are in, if we look back, it will switch us back to the camera that we were last on. And then also, as you can see now, with the camera leg rotation on as well, we can also see the side of the car because we have enabled it to lag a bit behind the car's rotation. Okay, I just kind of flipped the car over. But as you can see, it gives a little bit of dynamic movement to the camera instead of it just being as static as it was before we added the code. So with that, we now know that the camera code works. And that brings us to the end of this video. And until the next one.